I'm John Edwards, and for 21 years, I led crisis communications at the federal level, responding to hurricanes, oil spills, and mass casualty events. I've stood in command centers during national disasters, on ships during high-stakes operations, and inside joint information centers while chaos unfolded in real time. And I've seen what happens when organizations freeze instead of lead. But here's the truth most people miss. The real threat isn't always the crisis itself. It's what happens in the first hour after it hits. If your people don't know who speaks, what to say, or how to lead with clarity and care, trust disappears fast. That's why you're here. In this training, I'll give you the exact framework that I've used with federal teams and now teach to public-facing leaders across sectors like government, health, nonprofit, and more. But this isn't just a lecture. It's a working session. You're going to walk away with a real-world plug-and-play tool, one that turns confusion into confidence and turns chaos into clarity. You ready? Let's get to work. Okay, again, my name is John Edwards, CEO of Signal Point Strategies, and I am so happy that you decided to invest in your readiness and that you're here with me today. So, welcome to the Crisis Clarity Training, where we're going to get some momentum started for you and prepare you and your organization for any type of crisis that might come your way. But before we go one slide further, I want you to imagine this. You're at home, it's 6:18 p.m., your phone's buzzing, something's happened, and it's not good. The media's asking questions, your team's texting you, a board member wants to know what to say. So, do you freeze, scramble, say nothing and hope it passes, or do you lead? This is the moment we train for, and today I'm giving you a look at the system that makes you the calmest, clearest voice in the room when everything else is spinning. So let's get started. Now, this isn't theory. What I'm giving you today, I've used during the Deepwater Horizon response. It's the same tools I used during government shutdown, especially in 2019. It's the same framework I've used for literally hundreds of unnamed disasters. So no, this is not theory. This is battle tested and field used for every major crisis, whether it's national or regional, big or small. This is what professional communication teams in government and Fortune 500 companies use, but it's been right-sized to meet your needs. Now, I remember standing in the Joint Information Center after the Deepwater Horizon blowout. Oil was spilling into the Gulf. The White House was literally on the line. Local leaders were demanding answers. And in those first few days, there was zero clarity. We had numerous agencies all speaking at once. It was chaotic. But I did see in real time how speed, structure, and empathy weren't optional. They were oxygen. They were oxygen to that response. So regardless of whether you're leading a city, a rural health clinic, a nonprofit, or any organization where risk touches people, having clarity, structure, and tools immediately available to you is going to make all the difference. And guess what? No big public relations firm required. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at what's at stake and why crisis communications matter, the risks that most orgs might overlook, some avoidable mistakes, a simple framework for crisis messaging, and you're going to be really excited because it's a simple framework. And your number one readiness tool, it's your role matrix. So by the end of this, you're going to walk away with a crisis tool in your hand and a plan in your head. Sound pretty good, right? So you might be wondering who I am or what makes me qualified to lead you through this training. So let me quickly introduce myself and then we'll just go ahead and get started with the training. So for quick context, I am a 21-year veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard, where a majority of my time in service was spent as the public information officer. My responsibilities included ensuring that my unit's communications missions goals were met. And I also served as the voice of the service during times of both celebration and tragedy. I've responded to disasters at every level, from frontline pollution events to national emergencies like Hurricane Katrina and Deepwater Horizon. I've briefed cabinet members, educated congressional staffers, spoke live on CNN and Good Morning America. I've personally prepped everyone from district commanders to the newest petty officer in the service to deliver messages under pressure and when the stakes were at their absolute highest. And now I help organizations like yours, those without comms departments or PR budgets, build real response capability, because risk doesn't care what your budget is, and readiness should never be out of reach. So let's get into what is a crisis. Well, the litmus test is simple. If something impacts your reputation, your ability to deliver your mission, or your funding, if it touches any one of those areas, you're in a crisis, and your response must be measured, structured, and fast. So here's what I want you to take from today if you take nothing else. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's not just a quote, it's a principle. Transparency preserves trust. So you want to show the harm that's been done. You want to show what you've done, and you want to show what you'll do next. That's what keeps your stakeholders on your side. Even when things go wrong, I like to call it making them a partner in the process. You loop them in, and you'd be surprised at just how much traction you get with your stakeholders by simply making them a partner in the process, inviting them in, being transparent, because by knowing that transparency is key and understanding the value of trust, you can turn skeptics into advocates simply by ensuring they feel seen, heard, and reassured. So that's important because guess what? Crises don't wait for permission. They hit fast, and the damage doesn't just come from the event. It comes from bad or delayed communication. Silence can erode that trust. And if you don't fill the narrative, someone else will. You see, news hates a vacuum, and it will easily get filled by the know-it-alls on the internet or the best guesses of the media. I can guarantee you that your story will get told. It just won't be your story. So your job is to lead the conversation before someone hijacks it. So here's something I want you to think about, and I want you to ask yourself, if something went wrong today, who would speak for your organization? And what would they say? Would that message inspire trust, or do you think that it would cause more confusion? Now, when pondering those questions, if you don't know the answers right off the top of your head, then I can tell you right now, you need a crisis communications plan. Because crisis brings confusion. Confusion is baked into crisis. It's part of the package every time without fail. People want answers, but very few have them, and that creates fear. So fear of saying the wrong thing, people go silent, or worse, they'll say no comment. Silence invites speculation, and that's how rumors, contradiction, and chaos spreads. So what do you need instead? Well, what you need is presence, clarity, and compassion. Presence says, we're here, we're leading, we're present in this chaos with you. Right? Clarity cuts through the mental noise with simple, precise language, and compassion reminds people that humans are at the heart of this. And let me show you what happens when presence, clarity, and compassion are just missing. In this next slide, I'm going to show you a video. This is Tony Hayward, former CEO of BP during the Deepwater Horizon spill. Watch this clip.
We're sorry, actually. We're sorry for the massive disruption it's caused to their lives. And, there's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. I'd like my life back.
I want my life back. Those were his words. Meanwhile, entire communities were losing their homes, fisheries, and livelihoods. And that's exactly what tone deaf sounds like. He was late, he was defensive, and he made it about himself. So let's look at an example of what good sounds like. This next video clip is going to be Patrick Doyle. He's former president of Domino's USA, and he's responding to a brand-damaging crisis. Watch this.
Hello, I'm Patrick Doyle, president of Domino's USA. Recently, we discovered a video of two Domino's team members who thought that their acts would be a funny YouTube hoax. We sincerely apologize for this incident. We thank members of the online community who quickly alerted us and allowed us to take immediate action. Although the individuals in question claim it's a hoax, we are taking this incredibly seriously. This was an isolated incident in Conover, North Carolina. The two team members have been dismissed, and there are felony warrants out for their arrest. The store has been shut down and sanitized from top to bottom. There is nothing more important or sacred to us than our customers' trust. We're re-examining all of our hiring practices to make sure that people like this don't make it into our stores. We have auditors across the country in our stores every day of the week, making sure that our stores are as clean as they can possibly be and that we're delivering high quality food to our customers day in and day out. The independent owner of that store is reeling from the damage that this has caused, and it's not a surprise that this has caused a lot of damage to our brand. It sickens me that the actions of two individuals could impact our great system, where 125,000 men and women work for local business owners around the U.S. and more than 60 countries around the world. We take tremendous pride in crafting delicious food that they deliver to you every day. There are so many people who've come forward with messages of support for us, and we want to thank you for hanging in there with us as we work to regain your trust.
Okay, so that's empathy, fact, and action. So he acknowledged the harm, he named what happened, and he shared exactly what they were doing to fix it. It wasn't flashy, it was a little stiff, but it was effective. And that's the structure we teach at Signal Point Strategies. Can you see the difference in the two interviews? I'm sure you can agree that if something went wrong, you'd rather be the Mr. Doyle of the world than the Mr. Haywards of the world. So while we're talking, let's talk about those risks. These are the risks that public-facing organizations often underestimate. Leadership turnover that goes public. Maybe something happened and there's some back and forth on social media, or maybe there was some sort of scandal and someone had to be let go. Program failures or unintended harm, someone gets hurt or worse in one of the programs. Safety incidents, of course, even one injury can damage your reputation. Political pressure and funding losses, that's been in the news all over the place lately. See, you are more visible and more vulnerable than you think you are. And, but risks are one thing. Avoidable mistakes are another. So here are the big ones. Silence, that's always going to be my number one avoidable mistakes. But silence, out of fear, you're going to lose control of the narrative. So remember that vacuum that I was talking about? That's where you're going to lose control of the narrative if you stay silent. Solo decision-making. Crisis isn't the time for ego or for guesswork. You need a plan and you need a team to enact that plan. So no Han Solos out there. Oversharing, every word matters. Don't fill space with fluff. Every word matters. And scrambling, that just confusion. It creates chaos. You need a plan. And in order to get to the plan and to define the structure and the system that we're talking about, we're going to get to the heart of this training, and we call it the crisis core. It's made up of 3 A's: acknowledge, anchor, and act. Acknowledge what happened, anchor your message to your values or mission, and share the action you're taking. Now, even if the steps are early, you want to share all the action that you're taking. So if the 3 A's, this crisis core, is the heart of our training, let's get to the body. This is going to be the structure, and you heard me say this earlier, the EFA. We're going to talk a little bit about that because your first public message is called a holding statement. This is the product that you must produce. No questions, non-negotiable, must produce within the first hour of a crisis. And it follows that EFA formula: empathy, fact, action. It might look a little bit like this if I were to have an anatomy of a holding statement right here. We're deeply concerned about the incident, and at this time we became aware of these facts. We've launched these actions and we'll provide updates at this time. It's stripped down but extremely powerful because timing is everything. The golden hour, that first 60 minutes, if you delay, what happens? Do you remember? We talked about it just a little while ago. Do you remember what happens if you delay? Others are going to tell your story for you if you let them, and that is rarely a good thing. So no silence. You've got to speak fast. You have to speak with empathy, provide facts, have a plan, and you have to do this to protect your mission. And some other elements of a holding statement include 60 to 75 words max. Again, empathy, fact, action, always in that order. Use active voice, plain English, no jargon. What I mean by active voice is saying something like, we've become aware of this situation versus I am aware of this situation. Active voice. You want to publish this holding statement within the first 60 minutes. This can get pinned to the top of your social media channels. It can go to your website, any public facing channels that you've got. You want to have this on there. If media calls, this is something that you can give to them. This is something that you can share with stakeholders, with staff and volunteers. This is going to be how you put your foot in the door in the first hour to control the narrative. It's not going to be the last thing that you need to do. It's just the first thing that you need to do. But you have to do that. And then you want to follow a role matrix for approval and delivery, and we'll go through a role matrix. In fact, you're going to walk away with a role matrix today, so that's pretty cool. But let's look at what happens when you don't do this. I'm going to show you another video here, and this is an example of a leader who abandoned the EFA framework, and I'd like you to watch just how fast his credibility collapses.
Look guys, it has been an extremely long day. I'm having a hard trouble talking at the moment. I would appreciate it if we could wrap this thing up. I will...
Well, we actually have a lot of questions, and it's been a long day for a lot of people who don't have water. So can you give us an exact timeline as to how this all happened? The DEP was saying earlier today, as early as 8:15 yesterday morning, they were getting reports, and that you all did not call it in until 12 noon. The DEP was already here at 11:15. So what's the timeline on all this?
We were aware of the leaking storage tank around 10:30. We load tank trucks of this material on a regular basis, and occasionally we've had reports of an odor previously. So we were first aware of any material being spilled at 10:30 yesterday.
Could it have been earlier than yesterday? Because we've also received reports into our newsroom that it was as early as Wednesday, possibly Tuesday. People were starting to smell this in the area.
We have no information on that.
Are there no systems in place to alert you of a leak at your facility other than a smell?
At this moment in time, I think that's all we have time for. So thanks for coming. Thanks for your time.
We have more questions. Hey. No, we're not done.
You're not done.
We're not done. No. Anyone else have any other questions?
Yikes. That was awful from beginning to end. How about drinking water while an entire town was out of water, thanks to his company? So that would be tone deaf. His immediate assertion that he has had a long day, him cutting off the interview early because he was asked a pretty simple question about his company's ability to detect issues beyond a simple sniff test. A million other things about this were awful, but what I can say with a pretty good level of confidence is I've seen this before. I've watched leaders with large egos stroll up to a group of waiting reporters and do their best to take control of the media without any sort of preparation. I can tell you, it always ends up the same way. Crash and burn. But that is absolutely not going to happen to you because you are here with me and we are going step by step on how to prepare. A major part of being prepared is having the right tools, and that brings us to today's hands-on exercise, crafting the role matrix. So let's take a look at that. This is in your companion guide. It's right there in the right-hand side of the screen. When you receive the video today, you should have also seen a link for the companion guide. If you already downloaded it, great, you can follow along. If you didn't, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you get it done today, not later, today. If you want to pause the video here and pull the document up, then that's fine. I'm not going anywhere. But my point is, this is important, and it's your number one readiness tool. So how do you fill it out? It's very, very simple. You need one name per box, plus their 24/7 contact information. You should also put an alternate's name and info in those boxes as well, in case your primary's on vacation or otherwise unavailable when a crisis hits. You also want to do a numbered sign-off chain to speed up approvals. And this is it's all simple, but it's magic. Knowing who is responsible for these positions and how information is first created and then routed for approval and then ultimately released is what makes this your number one readiness tool. This one tool, done right, will save you hours, because minutes matter. So you want to make them count. So knowing what these roles do, who in your organization is filling them, how to get in touch with those people, and then numbering them in a hierarchical order of approval you'll be able to crush this holding statement delivery and that golden hour with no problem with this one document alone. So it's completely, utterly simple and so effective. So let's break down some of the roles that I have pre-filled in there. The incident lead, that's the final decision maker. You also have the communications lead, which crafts and sometimes delivers the message. And I know that in a lot of organizations, sometimes the incident lead can be the communications lead. You wear a lot of different hats. I understand that. But if you have the capacity to outsource that to another person in the organization, then that just frees you up. A legal advisor, they guide risk and compliance. But I want to remind you, they are not your PR gatekeeper. And I can't stress this enough. I've talked to a lot of organizations and I asked them about, how they get information out. And initially they've always answered, oh, well, we have a standard operating procedure, or my favorite one is we use our lawyers to tell us what we need to do. Both of those ideas are horrible, but I need to impress upon you the legal advisor's role in this chain of command here. They are not there to approve or deny your message. They are there to advise on risk and compliance. While I absolutely agree they should be part of the review process, just so you aren't saying something you shouldn't, they should not be the final say on what actually goes out. And following any advice from them that remotely sounds like stay quiet or wait for this to calm down should be immediately disregarded, because they're not looking at this crisis through the same lens as you. You were talking about reputational protection, talking about keeping your mission and your people protected. The lawyers are more interested in keeping people out of a courtroom. So remember, you guys are on the same team, but you're looking at the game completely two different ways. So I don't think I need to go any further on that, but just so you know, your lawyers are not professional communicators, and they should not be in the way of you communicating to your stakeholders. So moving on, we've got subject matter experts. Those can be program leads or safety experts. Then, of course, support staff, human resources, IT, operations. They keep the whole wheels turning, because not only are you managing the crisis, you're also still trying to maintain your day-to-day operations. So you definitely need the support staff. But remember, clarity equals speed, because everyone needs to know their lane. And if they know what they're supposed to be doing and they know that hierarchical order of approval, then that's clarity. And clarity is going to translate itself into speed. So that's how the role matrix defines who's who, and that turns hours into minutes. And now you want to operationalize that. You want to run quarterly 5-minute lens drills, which in short is pulling the holding statements and message banks out along with the role matrix, just to make sure that everything is still relevant and the roles are still assigned to the right people. That's easy. So you also want to maintain a message bank for your top 5 risk scenarios. Again, very easy. Just figure out 5 areas where risk is most likely to come from for your organization, and determine who your main stakeholders are that might be impacted should that risk materialize into a crisis. Begin crafting those messages now based on what those stakeholders feel, fear, and need, and build up your message bank. That way, if any one of those risks turns into crisis, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game. Another is to add 15-minute mock pressers to your crisis exercises. If you're wondering what a mock presser is, it's a pretend news briefing. I've done these countless times, and they always give great insight on where a spokesperson might need to tighten up their messages a bit. I like to suggest building a bank of questions before you do this. I call them 5x5s, 5 easy questions and 5 questions you're really hoping that media wouldn't ask. Get just as comfortable answering the hard ones just as cleanly and clearly as the easy ones. So what you're doing is essentially you've got these 5x5s, you've got a holding statement, you pretend to walk up to the podium, and again, this is the mock presser. You walk up to the podium, you deliver your initial statement, you open the floor to questions, and you can have your friends or coworkers act as media representatives, and they can start throwing questions at you to see how well you can answer, to see how well you can bridge or redirect, how well you can flag or hook them back to where you want them should the questions get too far off the topic. This is a super helpful drill to run during response exercises or just on your own to keep your chops up. I would recommend doing that at least once a year. And of course, if you need help updating your tools or giving you that delivery under pressure experience, bring Signal Point Strategies in. We're here to move you from risk unaware to response ready. All right, if you made it this far, you care deeply about leading well, and I want to thank you for spending this time with me, and I hope that this training has provided a lot of value for you. The QR code you see on the screen, if you use your phone and scan that, it'll invite you to download my business card as a contact in your phone, so feel free to do that. Now, you already know crisis isn't a matter of if, it's when. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be ready. Now you've got the tools, so use them. And if you want backup, if you want to run drills, pressure test plans, or prep your team to lead under fire, Signal Point Strategies is here. Scan the QR code, book a call. Let's get you response ready before the storm hits. Because your voice in the first hour, it shapes everything that follows. So lead with clarity, lead with compassion, and lead like it matters, because it does. Thanks for showing up today. Now go lead.